Hello and welcome to Ideagen TV's 17 Days of Sustainability. Today we are honored and excited to have Valerie Calderon, Senior Education Research Consultant from Gallup, joining us with an incredible presentation as we talk about goal number 4, quality education. Valerie, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. It is such a delight to be here, and I'm excited to share a little bit about how we think about education at Gallup.
Well, Valerie, it's such an honor to have you here. And me, myself, Cooper, and the rest of the our global audience is thrilled to hear what you have to say today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. It really is a privilege and quite a time to think about education. So I just want to pause and say thank you to all of you that are thinking so hard and so well about ways to deliver education, to find ways to open doors, literally, for children to be learning. It is such a challenge now, and perhaps more than in recent times, to have opportunities for children to learn. The global pandemic has made it so challenging for children, and we know I serve on a board of education here in our town, and it has been so challenging to find ways to be able to connect teachers and students. And our polling over this last year shows us what a challenge it truly has been. And parents tell us that the challenge of being away from their peers and their teachers is really critical for their kids. So the message that I wanted to share with you today are ways that we can think about building engagement and creating hope, especially right now, when we know millions of children are not able to be in school. And even those places where there is technology available and they're able to connect remotely, it's still a challenge to be isolated from their peers and from their teachers. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things as we think about education that we study and think about here that we know we can bring it anywhere. How can we, in this really difficult time, help build children's engagement with school, their excitement for learning and growing, and how do we create hope for the future? The ideas and the energy that they need in order to realize their very best future. So that's what we're going to think about a little bit today. Very recently, we did a national poll of teachers, of parents, and of students. And we wanted to understand a little bit about their confidence in the upcoming school year relative to prior school years, knowing how many challenges are really multiplied right now globally, particularly with the pandemic and the increased challenges and limitations it's placing on teaching and on learning. And we did some listening. We asked teachers, how confident are you in your ability to successfully teach compared with prior school years? A little over half of teachers told us that they feel confident. 48% of children that we surveyed who are in 6th through 12th grade here are confident in their ability to learn. Parents feel very trepidatious leaders. 29% of parents are confident in their child's school to provide high quality education. There is undoubtedly concern about what this year looks like, even relative to prior years. In this same poll, we also asked parents to tell us one word that described how they were feeling about the upcoming year. Leaders, I know as folks who think about education globally, you're not going to be surprised to see this word cloud. This is a representation of the words that we heard from parents. They certainly are trepidatious, they're anxious, they're nervous, they feel very worried. They're concerned for their children's safety, they're concerned for their learning loss. They're concerned because they're not with their friends and with their teachers, their educators. And even if children are able to be in school right now, it looks so very different. Many are practicing social distancing. And so even just small things that children have in a day that they enjoy, like having lunch with a friend, even that might look different as they're needing to space themselves and can't have conversations as they might normally would. So we know that there is concern from parents and from guardians, and of course from educators and children alike, about how school is looking now and how it can in the future. There was one word, I'm going to flip back there. I don't want you to miss it though. And that is that word hopeful. It did pop in there, and I was really delighted to see it. That while things are so challenging right now for so many, we do know that there are some who are envisioning that better future. So I think that can be an encouragement for us to see that. We're going to chat more about hope a little bit today together. As educators, I know many of you leaders are thinking about, well, what could be different? How can we make strides toward high quality education for all children? What should school be, and what should we do that looks different? And certainly we're having those conversations as it pertains to education technology and digital tools, and the ability to bring content to children, even though we can't always have children in school even right now. I think this is a time where we can really think hard about having a different or more balanced framework and what we think success looks like for education. We know assessment is important. Even just last night at our board meeting, we were thinking about our attendance statement and how critical it is that we affirm that children are enrolled in and attend school. So tracking those things, as well as students' marks or their grades in school, certainly are good for some. But what I'm excited about with our research leaders is that there are things that are great for all students. We can help create a more hopeful future. We can help them be engaged with learning and love discovering. We can help them build their skills and their experience, find ways for them to contribute in meaningful ways because they bring such important talents to the table. And that's the last piece on our list that we're also going to think a little bit about together today, and that is their talent and their strengths. Every child is unique. This world needs them, and we need them to discover more about themselves. We need them to learn content, to read, to be able to do math. Numeracy and literacy are so very critical to opening pathways and opening doors for children, but we also need them to discover themselves and what they bring to the table and what makes them unique and how they contribute not only to their own best future, but they can splash that off on their friends and on their families and on their peers and communities around them. Understanding hope, engagement, having experiences and building strengths, these are things that are great for all students. And they're very accessible. We can bring lots of caring adults to the table to help create and build these in children. We're in really pretty good company, leaders. So if you're thinking about maybe changing the way you think about high quality education in the places and spaces where you are, you really are in good company. National polling here helps us know that folks think hope and engagement are really critical. About 8 in 10 told us that hope for the future and engagement with school are very important measures of school effectiveness. Whereas just 1 in 10 said this about standardized test scores. Not only did we ask the general population this, but we also asked our chief officers of schools. 9 in 10 US school superintendents say that engagement with school and hope for the future are very important indicators of school effectiveness. 1 in 10 say the same about standardized test scores. So we know there is great traction about understanding what success truly looks like and what high quality education can be, and that we can balance that framework for success just a little bit more. Thinking about how we help students love learning and know that they can create great pathways to their very best, most unique future. Gallup has had the privilege of thinking about and measuring engagement in workplaces globally, as well as in schools. And we think about engagement not only as involvement with school, but also excitement and interest in learning. It's that emotional component. If you're in education, you know what that looks like. When you walk into a classroom and you see those little light bulbs and the thought bubbles go on when children are really getting the content and they understand it and they're excited about it. That's really what we're talking about. We want to tap into that. We want to not only impart the important content and knowledge and cognitive skills that students need, but we want them to be excited about it because that's something they can take forever. And how do we build that engagement? Well, we know that we can measure it. So when we think about that balanced framework and we want to build engagement? We know that we can think about it very concretely. We define involvement or engagement as involvement and, as I mentioned before, enthusiasm. It really is also that emotional component of school, feeling psychologically committed. Really not only just being involved with what's happening, but really knowing that I bring a contribution to the table about helping to foster learning in schools. We think about this with 9 elements, leaders. We have 9 elements in our engagement measure. At the school, I get to do what I do best every day. Now, if I were to pick a favorite, I don't know if you're allowed to play favorites with measures, but I sometimes do, and I really do appreciate this element. Helping students to understand and get to do what they do best every day. There's another element in here that I love that I'll go ahead and share with you, but don't tell anyone else. We had a little bit of internal conversation when we added that item. We wanted to study it and see why it mattered to engagement. That is, I have fun at school. Do you see that item in there? We really did have some pretty intense discussions between researchers and the consultants about whether that was a critical element of engagement. It's turned out that our research shows that it is. You might know that we do global polling and our happiness measures, and we think about what that positive affect looks like globally. And we know that that's connected to people's well-being and how they think about and how they feel and how they experience their lives. So we knew this fun component was really important. And a little bit after we were having this discussion and we wanted to study this aspect of engagement and how important this positive affect is, I was at a school. I was at my kids' school, and I was helping with an activity, and it was an after school dance, and I signed up for that. And we were setting up, and it wasn't time to start the dance. And I looked over, and the line was forming out the door, and the students were waiting to get in, and they were kind of pounding on the window, and they were yelling and waving at us. They were so excited to get in for the dance. And I thought, gosh, this is a Friday night dance, but what would it look like if students were almost that excited to get into school on a regular Tuesday? So I love that element, and it is shown to have great connection to outcomes in school. We have been able to connect engagement to students' self-reported grades in school. They feel they do better in school when they're highly engaged. Engagement is linked to attendance, and it's also linked to standardized test scores. So again, you're in really good company if you're thinking about balancing your success framework and thinking about quality education and wanting to wrap measures around these non-cognitive pieces and really building the social and emotional learning aspects of school, because we know they're very well tied to those outcomes that we're very accustomed to measuring in schools. Here's what we've also discovered, leaders, though. Enthusiasm for school wanes. 5th and 6th graders are very engaged with school. We're asking students across those grade levels those same elements. By the time 11th and 12th grade comes around, students are not as engaged with school. It's harder for them to say that they feel safe. It's harder for them to say they have a best friend and that they have fun. So we know there are some particular pieces that we need to do with older students to tie with their learning to their future, so that we can boost their excitement, boost their enthusiasm, and help them to understand that this is their gateway to their own best future. And this has been a challenge for leaders as we help think about measuring and building engagement in students and the waning enthusiasm that we see in our data. We also measure hope. So when we think about hope, it's about creating great ideas for the future, but also helping students to map their right pathway toward their future. Not just one pathway, because as all of us on this line can know today, there's often those times when you begin to take a pathway and it just doesn't work out. So we have to help students learn that even for those of us who are helping to think about their education and measuring education, and teachers and principals and schools and headmasters, we all experienced obstacles along the way. And sometimes I think we need to be a little bit more vulnerable leaders with students to help them know that it really is about learning to navigate those obstacles and overcome them and find new ways around them, but also inviting help and feeling really comfortable with inviting people to help you navigate them. So we measure hope. We know it's about believing that the future is better than the present, and not only believing that it could be better, but that I have some power to help make it so. And our good friend, the late Dr. Shane Lopez, who is a senior scientist at Gallup, really helped us with our hope, science, and research and understanding. With students, we've been able to measure hope, and we qualify them in these categories as hopeful, stuck, and discouraged. And again, those hopeful students are able to navigate obstacles and have a great positive vision for what that future looks like. Now, this might seem ironic, but when we were thinking about the qualitative aspects of this measure, when we're trying to think about, well, how do we talk about hope? We know we can measure it. Our data are really telling us something about what's important about high quality education. Um, and we know that hopeful students, we know how to describe them. They have strong ideas about the future. They can navigate obstacles and they can create new pathways, and they know how to draw on help around them. Discouraged students, we know, may not only not have a good pathway, they may actually have a negative conceptualization of the future that we have to kind of come alongside and help them paint a new picture. But we weren't sure, and again, here's the ironic part, we weren't sure how to talk about this middle piece. How do we qualify this middle category? We know statistically, quantitatively, they look different on these measures, but we aren't sure how to talk about them. Well, we were stuck. And we realized we were stuck in trying to talk about it. And of course, as you can see, that's the way that we opted to frame it. And there's so much opportunity for children that are here, for students who may have some good ideas about the future, but they just need to understand they have internal resources as well as the external resources to draw on to help them map that positive pathway to the future. So this is the way that we kind of think about and measure hope. We have several elements about this. And and we know from our research that they need hope. We have studied what followers need. My favorite Gallup book is Strength-Based Leadership. Trust, compassion, stability, and hope are the four top needs of followers. Followers need compassion. Gosh, we need it more than ever. Children need it more than ever. We need stability. There has been far too much happening. Sometimes we need to just be thankful for the uninteresting days, and we need hope for the future. Now, this is why we measure with students and help them to create hope in schools, because this is a sustainable measure. This is something, this poll, it's represented here as a measure for grown-ups. This is what we find from grown-ups when we poll and what followers need and creating hope for the future. So these are the elements with students that we use to think about hope. Most students tend to think that they're going to have a pretty great future ahead of them. Not all, but most that we have polled do. But we know that many need help with finding ways around problems. Leaders, the problems are myriad that children are needing to navigate, and that educators are needing to navigate right now. And finding ways around them is very tricky, and we need each other. We need to lean on different strengths and talents in order to tackle extremely complex goals. I'm so proud of the leaders that are thinking so well, again, globally, about how to bring education to children and how to bring children to their schools in a time where it's truly unprecedented in ways that we haven't seen with the global pandemic and recently. So I'm so inspired by those who are not shying away, but going headlong into the challenge. So this is how we measure with students. And again, we know that they have great ideas and energy, but Dr. Lopez would help us know that just having ideas is not enough. We need to come alongside and help them know how to navigate pathways to get there and have the requisite motivation that they need to succeed. We find in the US that 6 in 10 of the students surveyed strongly agree they have a great future ahead of them. That means 4 in 10 are really not sure. We really need to come alongside, bring hope skills to children because it matters. The research on hope shows us that hope is contagious. This is a good news. This does splash off on others in a good way. Hopeful people tend to help others know how to develop the skills to be hopeful for the future. It's not the same as wishing, and it doesn't cost. We also know from our researchers that hope propels better well-being. Well-being, from a subjective standpoint, is how we think about and experience our lives. And we know that hope is an accelerator of well-being. We know, as I've already mentioned, and is the reason that we measure in schools, that hope drives success in schools. Hopeful students, again, tend to have great ideas about the future. They tend to have better perceptions about how they're doing in school. They think that they're doing well. They tend to report getting better grades. It's also linked to higher grades and test scores with children. It's also linked to attendance and retention in school. So hopeful students, more than their discouraged peers, tend to attend school, and they are also more likely to be engaged. These are linked measures, hope and engagement. Hope is also critically important for work outcomes. Hopeful teams tend to perform better, and they're also more engaged with work, which we know leads to productivity, lower safety incidents in work. So, hope is one of those sustainable measures that over time can help us boost success for people. We know that hope and faith are mutually reinforcing, and hope is a driver of strong feelings, better, more positive feelings, as well as behavior. In schools, for example, we find that there are lower behavior incidences and discipline challenges and with students, and hope is a driver of engaging with school, strong productivity, and success. But what we really want to know is, how do we build it and how do we create it? So what I thought I would share with you are some of the tools that we know about from our toolbox. The tools in this toolbox can go anywhere. They're versatile, and they can apply not only in our school buildings, but also in our communities and our out-of-school organizations and towns and leaders and caring adults can come alongside and help with these tools and creating engagement and building hope. The first critical tool in building engagement and creating hope is helping students to discover what they're uniquely amazing at, helping them to discover and to use their strengths. Now, we talk about also another tool in the toolbox, a hope audit. Now, lots of folks don't like that word audit. It has a very technical ring and not a lot of fun about it. But this kind of audit, I assure you, can be fun. Now, if you are in schools, this is what that might look like. But this could be done in a workplace. This could be done in your community. This could be done in your town or in an out-of-school organization. But let's think about a hope audit in school. It really is about critically looking at communications. It's critically looking at our processes and our procedures, and whether they are creating hope in students, we would call that a hope booster, or whether they're a hope buster. Are these aspects of our processes and procedures helping students to be more excited about the next step in their learning process, or even in their day? Or is it kind of blunting that excitement and enthusiasm? Here's a really fun example out of a school I was once working with, and they were challenged with truancy and students arriving late, and it was a middle school, so those students aren't bringing themselves to school. But they realized that when students came and they were handing over a tardy slip or a notification that they had to carry in their hand then and bring to class, that was a little bit of a hope buster. They changed that, and instead they decided, we're going to create welcome slips. We're glad you're here. And they changed that tardy slip to a welcome slip. It's such a small thing, leaders. But that message that said, hey, we're so glad that you're here today and we're excited to see you, can really be a game changer for a child as they're now making their next steps to the classroom, and they know that someone was literally on the edge of their seat and couldn't wait for them to arrive. The next tool in the toolbox is meaningful recognition. And this is recognition about accomplishment for sure, but it's also about recognition about what's unique. Now, hearkening back to that first piece that we mentioned in the toolbox, help them to discover what they do best and develop language around that. We are going to chat more about that today, but meaningful recognition is spotting what's really unique about that child, and helping them, as you recognize that unique strength, to develop that language for themselves. Again, building that self-awareness and self-efficacy, as they know, I can lean on what's unique about me. So when we drive quality education, we really want to help students know that we care about how they perform in school, and we care about what they're learning, and we want them to do well, but we also want them to learn about themselves and create new words and understanding about what they uniquely bring to the table, and that we cannot do without it, that we simply cannot do without their unique talent, their unique strength, and the amazingness that they bring to the table. Now, I'm just going to share a few of these other things, and we're going to go ahead and chat a little bit more together about how we think about discovering what we do best and helping children to identify and discover their talents. But I did want to just mention nexting. Again, our good friend, the late Dr. Shane Lopez, who helped us understand hope thinking, talks about, he would help us know in his book about practicing nexting. And it really is about, what is that next thing on the horizon? Is there something to look forward to? I bet many of us leaders on the line can think about when we were young, thinking about the weekend, or what that next fun thing was going to be, or the next birthday party, or that someone was coming to visit. Helping children to practice it on purpose, that today may be challenging, it may be really hard, and maybe even traumatizing. But as we help them to know that there can be a good and positive next thing, and let us help you think about and create that, caring adults can come alongside and help them practice that. Now, I love some of these other amazing tools in this toolbox, but I'll just go ahead and let you take a peek at them, and hopefully take some of these tools and put them in your own toolbox, as you're helping, as you're leading, as you're facilitating amazing educational experiences with your colleagues. Take these, put them in your toolbox, and use them. Let's go ahead and think a little bit about helping students to discover what they do best and help them learn their strengths. You might be wondering, okay, why strengths specifically? Well, strength-based development, we know, builds engagement with school. So all of that enthusiasm and involvement and psychological commitment that we were just visiting about, strengths, think about it as the accelerator. Now, I'm thinking about that a lot because I do have two. My two youngest are learning how to drive, and we're working hard with my youngest to figure that out and what that accelerator is. But this is a great accelerator. Strengths is an amazing accelerator of engagement with school. It's really hard. We know this with grown-ups, and we know this with students. It's really hard to not be engaged with your work. It's really hard to not be engaged with school when someone says, this is what I see that you do amazingly well. In fact, better than almost anyone. And we want you to learn how to do it more and even do it better. So when we bring strengths into the student development equation, we know that we're building their love for learning and for school, and we're also creating hope. Again, it's about what's giving them that tool that we know is internal, as well as those external tools. We know communities need to come and rally alongside children and bring resources, and schools need more funding, and they need more tools, and they need materials. But we also want them to know that you do have internal resources, and they're powerful, and they're amazing, and you can develop them on purpose. And we're going to give you chances to do that. And when we do that with students, it creates hope for the future, that they can do something really intentionally and on purpose. And again, the thing that I love about this, leaders, is that these approaches, building engagement, creating hope, and leveraging and accelerating those by using and leveraging strengths, those things are sustainable. We can do those things in school, out of school, in our communities, and we can create high quality education experiences, because when children come and they're engaged with school and they're excited for the future, gosh, there's lots of those imaginary light bulbs that that pop up, and students learn and grow, and take one step closer to their own unique, most amazing future. Our amazing leader, the late Dr. Don Clifton, helped us know that we can change the way we think about developing humans if we think about what will happen when we think about what is right with people, rather than fixating on what is wrong with them. It was a really powerful question that Dr. Clifton asked, and it really inspired and sparked the strengths movement. So when we shift from what's wrong to what's strong, again, I love that we can help students navigate those obstacles in school that might be really challenging for them. I have a child who thinks math is really tough, and I have another who thinks it's really easy, but they all and each know, irrespective of the content, that they uniquely bring something to the table that's special about them. And when we ignite this science and help people discover what they do best, which Gallup has done through its Clifton Strengths work, it is an accelerator for productivity, for success, and for joy. And we have had the privilege of working with over 700,000 students around strengths. Millions more need to know that there is something unique and amazing about what they bring to the table, and help them put language, words around that talent that enables them to concretely state, this is what I do well, and this is how I use it toward my goals, toward my unique best future. So inspiring that language of talent and using it to create amazing high quality education opportunities and for students is really not just an education game changer, but it's a life game changer. When we think about strength-based education, the approach really is about inviting all caring adults in a community, in a town, in a school together to invest in the development of each student's unique potential, but giving them truly concrete ways to think about and use it and maximize it, not only for their own growth and development, but again, to splash off on others in that community and to invest and making that a more remarkable place. We can routinely identify what children do innately well. Think about um, parent teacher conferences, and we've known and seen this in schools when you have a conversation that begins not only with how the child is performing, which is critical. We need to understand where they are so we can boost literacy and numeracy and inspire great content or great love of content in science and in history and social studies and engage them in projects. But for all of those pieces and things that students learn in school, when they bring their talent to the table, again, it accelerates learning and makes the process more remarkable. And that strength-based approach can be integrated in both the mission of education as well as the practical pedagogy, the steps that you take to actually help students learn. Okay, now we've come to the point in the presentation where I get to help you know this is not my talent. Photography is not leaders. So apologizing right now. This is my oldest daughter, and these are 3 snapshots right out of my own phone. And it is, as you can see, documenting and taking great photographs. I'm really not very great about it. So I apologize in advance, but this is an amazing story about my daughter, but really it's about the amazing educator in the middle. This girl was a gymnast. She loved to be upside down ever since she was little, and I kind of wish she would stay right side up, but she was upside down a lot. And we were excited to give her chances to do that, but she did experience a career-ending injury to her shoulder, and it was really challenging because she'd spent all her growing up days and so many hours trying to figure out how to do this crazy sport called gymnastics. And there was a day when this amazing educator heard about my girl's injury. And we'll call her Mrs. S. And Mrs. S came up to my daughter during her 8th grade year and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I heard that you got hurt and you're not doing gymnastics." And Miriam helped her know, "Yep, I'm not in the gym anymore." And she really gave it quite the try. She spent many weeks trying to rehab this shoulder injury, but as you might, if you know a little bit about this sport, there just really wasn't a way for her to rehab and to come back. Well, Mrs. S said, "I have an idea. I think you could do pole vaulting. I don't know about you, but I had never seen pole vaulting, at least not, on TV. I had seen it, but not not in person. And of course, this mom was like, can we try something where both of your feet stay on the ground? So I probably would have preferred that. But I was so delighted by this amazing educator who did a really amazing thing. She helped my daughter envision a different kind of future. This girl has an absolute love for um, sports. She was an amazing athlete and she loved competing, but you can see her strengths there at the bottom of the screen. She's a developer. She loves to help people understand new ideas. That's her woo. And she loves to communicate and she's highly futuristic. And that one right there is what Mrs. S tapped into. She thought, you have a talent. I see it. And I bet you can do something different. It was a really amazing journey. And she taught her how to pole vault, and she did so on her shoulder that wasn't injured. And so she did it on her weaker but healthy side and learned how to pole vault and had an amazing and exciting journey trying a new thing. And it was something I couldn't have helped her with. That educator came alongside and inspired her to do something different that was completely different than what she'd ever done before and helped her believe that she could help make that new future a possibility. There can be big and little ways that we do this for children, coming alongside to give them a vision for their future, but helping them to see their strengths as a sustainable, amazing strategy. And all kinds of caring adults can come alongside wherever you are and help young people understand what they do best. Spot that young developer. Maybe it's a young teacher. Spot that child who loves to compete. We call that strength spotting here. And when we do that, they can take that into their future. They can take it into their work. They can take it to their town, to their families, to their communities. We know that a focus on strengths is sustainable because people who have strengths-based development, someone invests in what that strength is, they're more likely to say they have an excellent life. They have higher engagement in school or in work, and they also can boost their performance. So they can take this with them indefinitely. So, building a strength based approach is really about helping children discover what's unique and amazing about them, and then embedding it into the way that we do education and school, and then creating a sustainable path by continually reinforcing those strengths, giving them more chances to do what they do best. And we can even do those things not only in school, but out of school as well. And we can start spotting them early. I love that we think about this. One of our very best teachers about strengths here at Gallup helps our teachers of our youngest Gallup citizens who are in our young early care and education school. Those teachers work hard to spot strengths. So I was really amazed at their ability to spot strengths, even in littles. And this is one of my favorite stories about my youngest kiddo. She was in preschool. She was a little. She was maybe 3 or 4. And when she was in school, she was out on the playground and playing and was having a great time with her peers. And I came at the end of the day to pick her up from school. And her teacher said, "Oh, we temporarily looked around and couldn't find your kiddo, and so we looked out back on the playground, and there she was, and she was standing beside the fence and kind of waving about. And we had to walk over and see what she was doing. I said, "Well, gosh, what was she doing? Why didn't she come in with you when recess was over?" She was standing by the fence, and on the other side of the fence, there were 3 little toddlers. So the older preschoolers had their playground, and on the other side of the fence was the playground that was safer for the littles. And so the toddlers were sitting on the ground. And her teacher looked at me and she said, "Val, your daughter was standing there and she was singing her ABCs and saying her 1, 2, 3s and singing her Old MacDonald Had a Farm songs with the animal sounds and all. And those littles were sitting on the other side of the fence, engaging with her and practicing their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s with your little 3-year-old teacher helping them." At a really young age, that teacher was able to spot something I hadn't even seen. She spotted a developer in my child, someone who just loves helping someone else learn and get it and grow and become something new. Throughout her journey, then I could be more on purpose about that because that teacher spotted that talent even when she was young. My daughter is aspiring to be a teacher, much to my joy, and I'm very excited about her vision and excitement about that. But all children need caring adults to come alongside them and spot what they do uniquely well. There are many children globally who are not even in school or cannot access school. Can we go to communities and help them know you do something unique, young person? There's something particular about your talent that this world needs. Help them know it. Give them language. And then in our schools, as we're trying to drive high quality education, let's embed a language of strength so that they can bring that to the table when they're learning content that's hard for them or finding something that's new and challenging. They know with that amazing internal resources that they can leverage toward that. And maybe they can show what they know in a different way because they know that strength. Some students may love to communicate and be able to walk through PowerPoints and use words to describe things, and others might enjoy sharing that one-on-one or being able to draw that picture or use artistic talent. Let's embed it in a way that helps change the way students think about how they share who they are and how they share what they know and how they learn. These are sustainable elements that we can use to balance our framework and our thinking as we think about building engagement, creating hope for the future, and helping students discover what they do best, putting a language around their strengths and talent. It's an accelerator of engagement and it can help create hope for the future. I think that it's really very timely to help think about concretely measuring and creating and boosting engagement and hope, and doing that through a lens of understanding that every person is precious and brings something amazing to the table, and helping them learn what that talent is and giving them great language and chances to practice that every day. It's been a real delight to share a little bit about engagement and hope and strengths with you. Thank you again for what you are doing to drive high quality education, make chances available for all children to learn and to grow, and to realize their own best future. It's been a real delight to visit with you.